Hey everybody, we're back. We're in the secret location here with Mike Lorenzo again.
Bunker.
We're in the bunker today. And we're here to bring you a very serious video, in my opinion, and a very important one, in my opinion, as well. So what are we doing here today? Well, it's all about new speculations and new ideas on this old crime. We, as Son of Sam researchers, have essentially thrown the ultimate evil away for the most part. And because of that, and because of all the new information that's come out, it behooves us as modern Son of Sam researchers to, well, start thinking about these crimes in a different way. And because we have this amazing resource of a first-class detective mind, Mike Lorenzo, with us, well, Mike spent some time coming up with what I think is going to be a very thought-provoking presentation for us today. Now, I want to say that this is all speculation. This is just thoughts that we have. We're not trying to force our thoughts down our opinions down anyone's throats. This is just all about starting a new conversation. So Mike, thanks so much. I mean, this is amazing work. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah.
So basically, this is the Mike show. What have you come up with, and essentially, what are we going to learn today?
Well, I was just thinking about who influenced Berkowitz. But besides, I want to show you this portrait. We always see this smiling kind of guy. I think this is the face that the victims saw when they got shot. There's meanness there. There's evil intent in this face. He's mad. This is the man that they saw walking up to him. They didn't see that smiling, cherubic kind of face. The mirror has two faces. This is the evil face, and I believe that captures it really well.
And notice that his hand is in the position that he would be carrying a gun in that hand.
It's also a clenched fist, anger, angst kind of pose.
Now, when I always thought this photograph was a picture of him coming back from the army in the Bronx.
No.
Like this is
That's an intake photo from Attica.
Wow.
Yeah. There's some creep bought.
Yeah.
I copped it off the internets. All right.
So we got a lot up here, Mike, and this is, to me, a very beautiful
So I want to start with the comparisons. I'm not only a detective, but always a true crime buff. Not that that's unusual. So many people are, and that's why you're watching this.
Right.
But
you have something.
Everybody's influenced by everybody.
You have something in common with Berkowitz. He was a true crime buff too.
Yeah, but I mean, that's probably one of the only normal things he does. But being a true crime buff. And there's something about true crime that appeals to all of us, and maybe that's a reflection of our kind of darkness, I don't know, our fascination with that. And that being said, I think like anything else, like when we talk about the time of 77, where as far as world events, as far as crime went, Berkowitz was the lead story, which he totally got off on.
Oh, he loved it.
And he was bigger than the freaking Pope at that time. He was bigger than Reggie Jackson in New York. He was bigger than Jimmy Carter. So,
and he wrote that in his letters about how he wanted to get back and everyone to know who he was, and I'm the person who's doing this.
There's a huge thing with megalomania, especially for people who contact the police. And the one person who I think he was notorious before Berkowitz was Zodiac. And even though it was a West Coast crime spree, it was national news. It was something that caught the attention of everybody around until basically the Mansons and then Son of Sam.
Right.
That was the case. That was the primary unsolved murder case of the United States and probably the world. And I saw so many similarities to them because every serial killer, you had to categorize them. You have your Bundys, who are sex killers, who would spend time with their victims dead, never reached out to police. There's all different kinds. And then there's the megalomaniacs who use it, either the disgruntled cops that they couldn't get on the police force, so they just think they're smarter than them. It's like a cat and mouse game.
That sounds like our boy over here.
It's a Professor Moriarty, Sherlock Holmes. It's actually the battle of wits. I'm going to show these people who maybe somewhere along the line dissed him.
Right. Or I'm going to show the police I could be the better.
I'm smarter.
I'm smarter.
I'm smarter than you.
And Berkowitz definitely had that.
They get off on that. So I made kind of we used to do this on actually open homicides. We used to do whiteboards, which are good because sometimes you could talk, but if you have something kind of in black and white to focus on, and then people can add or take away. Right. Or people say, oh, yes, I agree with this and blah, blah. So that's why I did this, because we would do that in a natural pattern of cases we worked. So just starting off with in my opinion, which are relative similarities, okay? They both have a symbol. Zodiac obviously being the first, but this was a very distinctive thing that he wanted to be out there.
Right.
He loved the fact of seeing that. And actually, one of the letters he says, I want to see more people with the Zodiac buttons. Why aren't they wearing my button? So he even copied that. It's
a direct copy.
Yes. Well, the circular and cross. Yeah.
The circle.
Yeah,
right.
He just made it, his own thing.
He took the circle, made it smaller.
Male and female. And the S is obviously Sam. The T, depending on your show, it can be a crucifix or an upside-down crucifix. I don't know. A lot of times I thought that this was a geographical thing, but all the ways I worked it, I couldn't find out, meaning that maybe this is where he was located.
Hold on.
Maybe this is where he was located. These are just thoughts I had in my mind. This is where he was located, and this is the car residence, and these crosses are maybe geographical areas of cross streets or whatever, and instead of male, female, they were almost directional, but that's far-fetched.
That's in my opinion, yeah. I think that it's more likely that he just directly copied that or influenced by that.
And he influenced his own kind of thing with the male and female, but the S is obviously something of the Sam.
Right.
Okay. But here's the similarities. They were both mobile. In other words, they used motor vehicles to do their crimes. They weren't like a Gacy or Jack the Ripper was on foot, obviously, no cars, but he was mobile, which allowed him to get off scenes, and he probably did not live in these areas to stake out. The car was his accomplice in a lot of ways.
It was. I mean, he even wrote how he kept it in perfect tip-top shape, and he would drive everywhere.
Right. So they were both mobile, doing their crimes. They both taunt police, okay? They're both police buffs, and what I mean by that is, in their terminologies, they were talking in cop language.
Yeah, absolutely.
In their letters.
The job.
In cop linguists or jargon, okay? Which means that they either hung around at cop bars like what's his name, Kemper did.
Right.
They like to ingratiate themselves with cops. They love the notoriety, and this is the megalomania. They love the fact that their name is out there. Oh, you haven't heard from me in a while. I want you to know I'm still out here.
Roaming
I'm still the fucking guy, I'm still the same thing as the Zodiac. Intense megalomania, intense thing. Clues and letters. Now he was. A lot of people speculate that he had background in coding. Whether it was through the Navy, there's been all kinds of speculation on that. Or he could have just been a person who was into coding, like people who were into Sudoku.
Right.
But he was smart. He never wanted to get caught. It was taunting. After they were broken, it was even a further taunting.
Right.
Like, you'll find me here, but then be like, I'll have my slaves in paradise and all that crap. Well, he left clues. Now, whether that was because he wanted to get caught.
He says he always planned to get caught.
Okay, but so he's giving info. And that's when we go back and you broke it, I always want to give you your props from the Wicked thing. And the fact that it took so long to freaking break that is insane.
No one just thought
and Maury was right there. With all the crap that Maury did, and obviously, whether we like him or not, he obviously did. I mean, the thing was his life force.
It was his life, yeah.
And he could. All the people, he never could find out King. I mean...
And Duke, yeah.
He obviously didn't ask the right questions.
He didn't ask the right questions, absolutely.
They both started shooting couples in cars that we know of. That's a very big point I want to point out.
Exactly, and that's one of the big things.
I told you this, and every cop who's watching this will laugh when I say this, because they'll know it. I heard this from an old cop, too. It's not something I invented, okay? If I catch you for one thing, the chances that was your first crime that you ever committed, and you were so unlucky that I happened to catch you, are astronomical. Okay, if you're a burglar, if you're a thief or whatever, like him, Berkowitz was a menace and never got caught for shit.
It's going back to when he was a child.
Going back to he's a child. And most crimes do go unsolved, unfortunately. So I always say, yeah, I caught you for this one, but I know you did 30.
Right.
You know what I mean? I caught you for even with drug dealing. I caught you for 4 deals, which means you got away with 20,000 deals. That's why you have 40 grand in your Adidas box in your bedroom. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a topic that's I think we're going to talk about a little later in more detail.
So he shoots couples in cars. He used a 9mm, apparently a Luger, and a .22. He shoots couples in cars. They're both occultists in their writings. Very evident. Both well read on the occult. Maybe not practicing occultists, but people who had background in reading those books and be able to pick and choose what they wanted out of those. He
wrote his bibliography. Malachi Martin, Occult Bondage and Deliverance. This guy was very
well read.
Right, and on the cover of Occult Bondage and Deliverance, it has these symbols on it.
Okay.
It has
the male and female.
The male and the female, and has the arrows on it and everything.
Okay, yeah.
So his symbol could have been a mashup.
We all borrow from what
influence.
We're all influenced, even subconsciously, in the decisions we make, whether it's clothing or whatever kind of thing we're going for.
Well, on that point, I just want to mention to the audience something that you pointed out before we started filming. And because it kind of goes along with this whole thing of influence. He was influenced by popular culture, as evidenced. He used the lyrics from a Chicago song?
Yeah, The Night Chicago Died by Paper Lace. Yeah, people screaming in the street.
Right.
Oh, what a scene it really was. You know, again, it could have been subconsciously, but that song was, if you grew up in the 70s, The Night Chicago Died. Mother, what a night it really was. People running in the street.
Right.
People screaming, blah, blah, blah. They said 100 cops were dead.
That's in his Southampton letter, his final letter.
And in the Southampton letter, that was going to be his shootout with the cops, correct?
Right, and he writes almost the exact same line in that letter.
Look that up.
Right, so clearly he was influenced by popular culture.
We all are.
Right, and he was influenced by, of course, also, I think, the popular culture of the...
They named themselves. Nobody named him the Zodiac because he was killing on different days. It wasn't a paper that said, this is the Zodiac.
Right.
He used different names, right? Shelby Behemoth, the Brat. But he named himself Son of Sam. He named himself. Again, copying Zodiac.
Well, you know what's interesting is this gets back to maybe his need for dominance and control. He was being called the .44 caliber killer.
Right. I'll name myself.
Well,
they probably had a name for Zodiac, like the Midnight Stalker or something like that, and he came up with that. Yeah.
I'll name myself.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He was probably military Zodiac in the way he dressed, and he was ex-military. So the ex-military, the part of it is the training of, not that there were, I don't know what he was in, but he wasn't in an elite like Ranger unit or anything like that. But you do get basic, especially during the wartime operations, which he was in. He probably joined to go kill, to find the satisfaction of killing, and it probably added to his angst that he was not deployed to Vietnam, and he was in some just.
Well, that's what John Comparetto said. He wanted to go.
He wanted to go
Vietnam,
get some heads. Yeah. Yes. They say the best killers in war most of the time are sociopaths, and they have a hard time adjusting, and sometimes they do horrible things when they get out. They're great killers in the battlefield because they'll do things that most people wouldn't do.
I wonder if with Berkowitz, if he had a few bodies in, say, Vietnam, if he would have come back satisfied. Probably not.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too.
But that's a commonality. This can't be proven, but with Decoding. This is a side note. They both dressed conservatively during a hippie era. If you look at Berkowitz's his haircut, it was a little bit overgrown, but that's probably because he wasn't. But he was clean shaven. His dress was almost very vanilla, with kind of where a time in the 70s where it was very flamboyant to wear bell bottoms. He wasn't an old guy. He kind of dressed older than he was. He was 24. But he almost dressed like an older man with very conservative colors and dressed nothing flamboyant. The 70s, anything when people were wearing, orange and crazy. all the different styles.
The different materials,
and
too.
same thing with Zodiac. In the one picture they have, he has a high and tight haircut.
Right.
He has kind of Buddy Holly glasses. The boots he wore were military type boots. They were like I think they were not combat boots, but similar type of police boots, like we used to wear the Nap police shoes.
Well, you know, his friend Comparetto said that he was very conservative.
Yeah.
That this whole hippie thing just basically didn't even touch them. They were just conservative.
Although he did do LSD.
True. And now we found out that he was doing drugs before the Army.
And in a lot of those letters, they were kind of no peace to all. So maybe he went in with this gung-ho shit.
Right.
Got turned on to LSD, saw that he wasn't going to be able to engage in action. You know, obviously he was always borderline searching, right, to fill the void. So maybe before he got into the Christianity thing, maybe he got into the peace thing, which led him to the Christianity. Who knows?
Right, exactly.
Both killing sprees lasted for 1 year. Now, that could just be, obviously for him, it was just, he was caught in 1 year, but it's basically almost a 1 year
Exactly,
anniversary,
yeah.
7/29, 70/31. And I think that was almost planned, like he wanted to get caught after a year. Not to emulate him, because he was never caught.
Right.
But, you know, he
Berkowitz said his intention was always to get caught, and just the fact that he mentioned the anniversary in his Breslin letter.
I've seen in other books too and other things. And again, I'm not trying to be mind hunter, but there's a lot of validity to those FBI books. I've read them all, and they're excellent. They're really good. Because what they do is they just go in and do this, like look for patterns, look for similarities.
And I think the biggest psychological block a lot of people are going to have with this and reading an FBI book is just the whole thing of getting this conspiracy theory out of your head, out of their heads, so their heads can be clear enough to take this new information in and evaluate it regardless.
One thing I learned from before I was a cop, obviously, because I wasn't kind of cloistered as a kid, so maybe I had more street sense than more common kids. And I think those are the best cops, guys who kind of know that, yeah, people do really bad shit. You know? They just don't read about it in the paper. They've actually seen people do bad things and know it happens.
And it could be a guy who looks like this.
But most people, we are, like you said about pop culture, we are influenced by that. So I'm going to tell you something right now. It doesn't take a Professor Moriarty to take a gun. Anybody can do it. The only thing that stops us is your morality and the fear of getting caught and locked up. But it doesn't take some master conspiratorial plan to take a gun out and shoot somebody. It's probably the easiest thing in the world anybody can do.
Right.
It doesn't take massive amounts of ingenuity, like planning some crazy bank heist or even stealing people's IDs and open up that takes like a little bit more of a long-term kind of con.
Right.
Anybody can walk up to anybody and kill somebody.
And think about it too, we also got to realize that in the 70s, there were no surveillance cameras, there was none of this stuff, no cell phones, you could do anything on any street and pretty much get away with it. I told you before,
in the 80s, I think Rince brought this up too, because that used to be a lot of thing with our contract negotiations. We were understaffed in Yonkers by like 300 cops.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
When the FBI did surveys, like depending on your size of your city and the amount of crime and calls to service you have, like we should have had 300 more cops. New York City was same. They were crazy understaffed. And I worked with guys who came up in the city and they're like, you have no idea. When we jump off the floor, we'd be 8 calls behind. We'd be going to calls that happen at 8 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. People are like, where the fuck were you?
Oh my God.
So they didn't have a lot of time to actively patrol.
Right.
Remember I told you, like, when I would have downtimes to go up and check out onto mine, like I would always kind of hope that I'd run into one of these shitheads, you know?
Right.
But that's when I worked midnights, when things were a little bit slower.
Right.
So you could kind of just prowl and look for things. That's why a lot of good arrests happen on midnights, because you have the time to kind of go out and do stuff. 4 to 12s, 8 to 4s, you're running around like crazy.
And of course, one of the things we also got to remember is that the New York Police Department just came back from this huge staffing cut because of the budgets. Morale was shit. Yeah. I mean,
they were understaffed. I mean, you know, a place like, that's another thing, like, Manhattan is the smallest borough for people who don't live in New York. Manhattan is an island. It's very tiny. You can negotiate Manhattan, nothing. Queens, Bronx, and Brooklyn are huge. Geographically, they're huge. They're spread out like...
Right.
You know, before that, they were farmland, and the Bronx was named after the Bronx family,
right?
Who were Dutch farmers. That thing was huge. It was actually part of Westchester at one time. Just huge,
right? And culturally, there hadn't been these spree shooters randomly doing these things.
And those areas too were nice areas.
Nice
they weren't
areas.
They weren't like Jamaica or maybe Corona. But even back then, I think Corona wasn't that bad. But like Forest Hills, was it one of them?
Yeah, Forest Hills.
Come on, that's like Scarsdale or Queens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like they had
Floral Park, nice middle class.
He picked his spots smart too.
Yeah,
he never hid in a ghetto.
No,
he never did that, because you know why? In the ghetto, people are outside and they're watching.
They're watching.
Because you're the best eyes. That's what you get. But like in these suburbs, like everybody turns in at 10 after the 10 o'clock news, you know, and they go to bed and they sleep in their separate beds like Desi and Lucy.
He said he had planned these things out long before they started. He writes that in his Abramson letters. So this was a meticulous guy thinking about these things.
Yeah, and now with the Peachtree thing, I could see the tie-in. At first I was a little bit on the fence, but I said, yeah, well, you have factors like lived in New Rochelle.
Right.
Which still, that's, out of all the crap from the Maury Terry book, a lot of people have a hard time kind of like coming to the light. My coming to the light is, this is off topic, what are the chances, I hope this doesn't turn into a crazy conspiracy, that one man can work with a spree killer and rent out a house to a serial killer? I get, you know what, maybe he should have played the lotto.
I know, it's crazy,
But although that's reverse luck.
And of course we're talking about Jack Cassara here with Cowan. Cosmo, yeah, General Jack Cosmo.
And it's so like, how did he find that place? She said that she just did a small ad, and I think a penny saver. I guess anything's possible.
It is. That is one of the enduring mysteries for sure.
Okay, now this is a reach. I'm going to tell you that right now, but I just thought that it was interesting, because getting back to the New Rochelle and then the Pine Street. Just from my own experience, when I needed an apartment, you know, when I was a young guy, I would go to a real estate agent, or, you know, if you found out something, not that I lived in a million places, but that's how I went about it. His last killing Zodiacs that we know of was on Maple and Cherry Street by the Presidio. And actually the call was to go Maple and I forget another street, but he said, no, pull up to Maple and Cherry. So that was like a destination.
It was important for him.
Which kind of goes back to the whole Druid kind of thing of
tree worship.
And approximately a year, in 3/22/71, he sent a letter to the papers, and it was supposed to be a killing, like he had a marking of a killing. Mm-hmm. And it said, peek through the pines. That was Zodiac who wrote this to the thing. It was handwritten, and they confirmed it was from Zodiac. Now, whether or not that was something that influenced, I don't know. I mean,
right, because when he saw Pine Street.
Oh, I got sidetracked. I've seen in other things. Oh, he's disorganized. He was completely organized.
He was organized.
He was an organized killer.
He was.
Meaning that he, even with the gun, which he alluded to in that Good Housekeeping, it got kind of like routine. Go out, clean the gun, like I told you.
Right.
That gun was wiped down because he knew that it was an illegal gun.
Right. Now,
him tossing it with no fingerprints, unless somebody saw him, like a cop, toss the gun.
Right. Now, why was it illegal? You told me, but the other day off the camera. But
he ghost bought it. He had his friend buy it in Texas. But even back in the 70s, you needed a New York State permit to carry a firearm, and even back then, it was still hard to get. You had to have like a business that dealt in cash and stuff like that.
Right.
And the guy did him a favor. Looking back, he probably regretted it, but he bought him this gun. As soon as he left Texas, that gun was illegal. He knew it. He knew the law.
Right, right.
He knew the law. And that's why he's in that thing, again, either Freudian slip, clean the gun. And I tell you, I guarantee you he cleaned each bullet.
Wipe him down for prints.
Yeah. He was organized. He was... I want to get into it now. This continues down to here, okay? my opinion on Berkowitz, he was tested at 118 IQ, which is not superior, but it's higher than normal.
Right.
So again, throw out all that crap. He could never have written it. He could.
My ass.
These experts have.
We know he wrote it.
Bullshit on his half his academia.
Yeah.
You know, he had files which I found in a New York Times research. Okay, he had actually files, and one of the files was a manila folder with his picture. One of those little 8x10 probably things that
the ones that I found in his apartment.
Yeah,
the little...
and the thing, and the file was murder. Where was it? Oh yeah, official file, chosen executioner David Berkowitz. That was the title of this file.
Oh my God.
And one of the things was quotas remaining as of 4/20/77. In parentheses, 19 neighborhoods.
And that was written in his handwriting
His
in these
handwriting.
files.
He had bookkeeping experience, either through his helping his dad at the store. I think he had some kind of clerical things at the job, and he also had the mind for that compartmentalization.
Correct.
With the keeping of the files of the arsons, whether he did them or not. Very meticulous.
Perfectly
coding,
lined up.
Lined up. All his letter writings. So this is a person who thinks and acts like that in a regimented kind of way.
And
before he started losing his mind, they always used to come out, he used to carry around a toothbrush, always eating, always spit shine his shoes. This is a person who lived, towards the end, he started losing, obviously,
right.
the person, but for the most part, he's a regimented type of person.
And he writes in his letters to Abramson about how he kept his engine of his car perfect. He kept everything in his car.
Even in his letters, there's a chronological flow.
He's an excellent
There's
writer.
not mess.
Right.
When you're reading it, and he actually articulates.
Right, these letters here that I brought up for our reference
pronunciation.
Today. Right, the letters where he...
This is not a scatter. He writes better than I do. I'm always just writing kind of like
He's an excellent
scroll
writer.
notes. Organization, very organized. He had a scanner with the Bronx and Queens crystals. I didn't know that. I thought scanners were good. No, you have to
what
have
does that mean?
Particular crystals for the Bronx and Queens.
What's a crystal?
I don't know. I guess it's something you put in a scanner that can allow you
just to get those frequencies.
And that actually was something that the police, when they were formulating whiteboarding, probably were doing now. They're probably like, this guy's got a fucking scanner,
right?
You know, because we're flooding areas with cars. How does he know that? Because
right,
again. And he could make out, like I tell you, from him working at the 4-5 as the auxiliary and just being a Bronx kid and being a cop buff, I could sit outside here all day long and pick out undercover cars because they all have to have a radio.
Right.
And a lot of them have flashing lights behind the grill that if you're looking for them, you can see. If you're not looking for them, you can't see.
Right.
Because they have to, it's not like Kojak with the red cherry lights. A lot of them have the lights and the alarms. And if you know what to look for, and here's a guy who's walking in and out of the police is probably looking at every car he knew.
Right.
He could spot it undercover.
And let's not forget also that where he chose most of his victims was very, very near a highway
any car
entrance.
would have spooked him. And any car around that would have spooked him. Like if he's in Rego Park or Forest Hills, right?
Right, or Floral Park or in those...
Right, or in that area. If he sees like a real beat up kind of looking van, he's going to know it's 5-0.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Or just seem like a young person. He was smart enough. He could tell. He could sniff it out. Like most of us can.
Just the fact that he chose his last killing in Brooklyn, eluding everybody was...
Again, and the Berkowitz thing, the MOs. The plastic bag. Which I'm probably people are sick of me saying it. But the plastic bag shows that I could get rid of the fucking gun.
Right.
Because most people, you carry a gun here. Even bad guys, you know. You wear a shirt like that, and he wore shirts like that. So that's what I'm saying. Why wouldn't he just put it in there? He's probably so smart that he knows if he puts it in there and tosses it, that maybe fibers can get in the gun that they can match to his clothing.
Right.
That's how organized he is.
He probably spent and I'm just speculating because that's what this video is all about.
He couldn't have a holster because if he gets rid of the gun and they find the holster, they know to look for the gun.
He probably spent almost every waking minute in service of this crime spree, wiping down shit.
You ever hear the expression? What you do becomes your job, or your job becomes what you do.
Right.
He was a murderer. The other things he did was to make money. His job, like here, at the next job, his job was murderer.
Right. Right. And he took it very seriously.
You're a journalist, you're a gardener, right? I'm an ex-cop. That was his job. That's what he thought in his mind.
Right. Because he used the term job.
Executioner. Official file chosen executioner David Berkowitz.
Right, and there's more than one letter in there talking about how he has been chosen since birth. I'm the executioner.
I remember reading that, yeah. Now here's a couple of things which I want to broach that really stood out to me. Because the way he thinks and the way I read what he writes, people will always mess up. That's how you, not even intentionally, like they call a Freudian slip, or just subconsciously they put something in without thinking, oh God, that's my tell. It's like poker. Everybody has a little tell. Everybody has a thing where you could tell. It might mean nothing, but to me, it means something. I'm convinced of it. When he wrote in that letter to Abrahamson, or however Eric wants to say it, okay, Abrahamson, but he says, okay, now I already told you about the Loria shooting, right? To kind of make it concise. My second attempt with the 44. Why would you say with the 44?
Now, just before you continue on, I just want to let everyone know that this is from the August 13th, 1979 letter to Abrahamson, where he is talking about the Denaro shooting. And it says here, just specifically, let me read it. The second job, using police terminology, right, was the Denaro Keenan one. Both of them were sitting in a red Volkswagen and making out. This was my second murder attempt with my 44. Now, that stood out to you. Why?
My 44. Again, he compartmentalizes, not with... okay, here, I'm going to run down the shootings. This was my second attempt with my 44. Well, he was known as the 44 killer.
Why even bring it up?
He was caught with the 44. Why introduce that phrase? Because in his mind, he has categories. This is what I did with this gun. This is the ones they got me for. Going back to, I caught you for 1 or I caught you for 10, it means you did 100.
Yeah.
That's what, he owned multiple guns. And then I'm going to go into that theory now. I just want to finish up. Not my theory, practicality. And if you think of this with an open mind, now we're just focusing on DB, on Berkowitz, okay? I'm not going to introduce other people. I just want to articulate what we know through his actions, provable crimes, provable things. In other words, purchases of weapons, possession of weapons, incidents reported to police. No other speculative shit, just things that we know for certain, okay? Either through his own terms or through police reports or actual possession of items.
Right.
Okay? Now, he says in one of his letters, I bought the gun, the 45 rifle, which was semi-automatic. It wasn't a machine gun. Although, with a 30-round clip, he could zip out 30 rounds without a jam in under 10 seconds. So, as quick, like I told you before, as quick as you could do this in a semi-automatic, I've owned a 30-round clip. You could blow that thing out in no time. And then chunk and boom, and you got another 30 out. So if you fire it rapidly, it would sound like a machine gun. And it's actually more accurate than a machine gun because machine guns goes out in bursts.
Right.
But anyway, I bought a gun, 45 rifle, to have shootout. Lie. That's a lie. He bought that rifle months before he bought the 44.
And that's true. We have the article where
he bought
those
it in
guns
January '76, and that's going to lead me to my other point. Here's just a couple other notes I made. Were there other tickets? Because I found that in the Times thing, and there was a ticket written.
A moving violation.
A moving violation for an uninsured vehicle.
Wasn't
on the night of the
Valentina murder.
Valentina murder in that was the Bronx, right?
That was on the second one in the Bronx.
The Hutch. He got a mover. That's a mover. That's not a parking violation like he got in Brooklyn. That's a mover. That means the cop pulled him over, ran him, give me a license insurance card. He had no insurance in the car. I don't know about 75 here nowadays, but I believe it was. That is an unclassified vehicle and traffic law misdemeanor. In other words, you're subject to arrest for driving an uninsured vehicle. The cop has the right to lock you up. It's a crime.
Or take your car too.
At the least, if you're a good guy, you're from, I know Manny Grossman. I tell you what, park your car here, give me the keys, go get your insurance tomorrow, all right, down at Geico. Meet me up in the precinct next day. You show me proof of insurance, I give it the keys back, but you still got to pay that ticket for an uninsured vehicle. That's the favor.
Right.
That's the favor. At the least, I don't know you, but I don't don't have time to make a call.
Right.
I'm hooking that car. Whoever that cop was, effed up big time. Whether it's in Yonkers, Bronx, wherever he got that summons, that car should have been hooked.
Imagine what they would have found if they had just checked could they have legally checked it though?
I don't want to be a Monday morning quarterback,
Right.
but he fucked up. Whoever that was, they effed up.
Those might
should have hooked that car.
Those might be the things that that NYPD was afraid of getting out after the thing, rather than this conspiracy with all the. Right. It could have just.
I would be ashamed. I'd be like, God damn,
Right.
Because again, we all learn from each other's mistakes and stuff like that. Is like, you know what, you don't want to be, but you had to cover your ass. Like I say, forget he's Berkowitz. He's just Manny Grossman driving an uninsured car. He's give me some sob story, And all right, just be careful on the way home. On the way home, you kill a 10-year-old girl. You have nothing to sue. Their family, and rightfully so, will sue the shit out of me and the department. I let you go. It's on the air. I pulled you over. You let him go, Mike? What are you, crazy?
So that's a major oversight.
Major F up.
Yeah,
and he could have been caught 3 months prior. So all that shit about Yonkers, and maybe it was Yonkers cop.
Right, maybe it was Yonkers.
It could have been Yonkers that pulled him over and wrote him. I don't know. I never saw the summons.
Right.
But it existed. And that's another thing that I saw. There was no pattern. No pattern.
There wasn't.
Pattern? There's a pattern. And I'm going to show you what the freaking pattern is. Okay? And he also left, again, going back to the Zodiac, they found nothing on Zodiac. No, actually, no, they did. They found a couple partials on Zodiac, but because he never had a collar, it never got caught. They couldn't match it up.
Right.
But he did. He left partials on the letters, and they did match them up.
Right. Which should, of course, another bit of evidence that he wrote.
And also, in his personal papers, when they were doing the inventory, they found these notes that said Brooklyn, 2 on this street, with addresses. Who were they? The cops could never find that out. Apparently, they didn't have homicides on that street. I'm sure that's the first thing they looked at. Anything happened on the street in the last year or so?
Right.
But maybe he had a plan for 2 people, which might go back to the disco thing. Following somebody from some discos, marking them, good-looking girls who lived on that
block. It might
block.
also go back with this whole thing about how he's the official executioner of 19 people, 19 neighborhoods?
Yeah.
So it sounds like at the very least he had plans for other locations.
Because there was another thing in neighborhoods where he categorized. He was going to do one in the Lake George in the Adirondacks.
Right, Riverdale.
2 in Roslyn, Long Island, and 1 in Riverdale.
Right, and in his fire logs, he was driving all over Riverdale.
Yeah.
So he was scoping out Riverdale as well.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. It's just south of where he lived.
Yeah.
In fact,
he might like a lot of people, like he started in that area where East Bronx, where he's familiar. But I think eventually, he did do serious crimes in Yonkers, so it wasn't like he wasn't killing, he just was killing dogs, but those were serious crimes.
Right.
Like if you want to kind of lay in the shadows, he did not lay in the shadows.
He did not lay in the shadows, that's for sure.
So now this is what I want to get into my own timeline that I came up with.
Well done. Are you going to talk about the pattern, or is that later?
The pattern I have
You'll
here.
Get later, okay.
More detailed here,
Sure.
Okay? Oh, so now, so with all that information on the Zodiac and the whole clues in the letters, right? This is just my take on it. Doesn't mean anything. I'm not an expert at, I do New York Times crossword every day. I'm into puzzles like I'm into true crime.
You're into crosswords, so am I.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Crosswords are the
Anything
shit.
challenging kind
Right,
of intellectually.
Keeps the brain going.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean I cheat once in a while if I get stuck. But
I call it going to the mattresses.
I learned the way I look at it. The way I rationalize is like, well, now I learned something at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway.
But before you go on, I just want to say that it's important for especially those who might be critics of the show to understand that we are speculating here. But what did Maury Terry do with the Son of Sam letters? He tried to crack codes. He tried to speculate what it meant, and he came up with this thing about knocking on coffins, Pine, Ashburton, which has been basically everyone's religion ever since then. Everyone took that very seriously. So therefore, we're just following that same track that Maury took. We are trying to speculate.
Actually, I'm not speculating.
Okay.
I am speculating on certain things, but other things I'm not.
No, not this stuff. I'm talking about this
fact.
upcoming.
This is speculation.
Right. This stuff,
these are factual.
That's factual.
These are factual items that can't be disputed.
This is what I'm talking about.
This is the letter, and maybe there's even more to it. And one thing I told you, either on with the Nettos and it bothers me and really gets under my skin.
Get on this side. It's a little easier for me.
Get on my skin is, Zodiac, when he was doing this, they do, and the public can freaking really help. You have to put it out there, and with these letters saying, "Please help us." If there's anything in here that you can discern, okay? Because there are people outside of police work that actually might even have a better take on it, because they're not muddled with potential suspects. They're just kind of looking at it as this Rubik's Cube.
We're finding this out now in the modern era, that YouTubers are solving crimes.
Because they have the time.
Right.
I told you before, there's nothing more. Thankfully, I only had one unsolved murder in my whole history, because no cop wants to leave one like that. The only reason I could sleep at night is I know who did it. But because she was a homeless woman, that would have been a very hard case to prove. It got shit canned, but I know who did it. I solved that case. Sorry. It had nothing to do with my job, the higher ups.
Right.
It came from somebody who was just a creep.
Right.
And it shut me down, and it bothers me to this fucking day, to be honest with you. But I know who did it, so that at least puts my mind to rest. I would never want to leave an unopened case. And I feel bad for every cop watching who had to do it, because I feel you, brother. I know what it's like, and it's tough. But getting back to this, now I don't know what to make of this. Okay, there might be a code even in here. I'm just going with what I could think of. Okay, Sam's Creation 44. So that was the first moniker that he gave himself, was Sam's Creation. That graffiti, and there's nothing that I gotta give props to Manny for. I'm not a graffiti expert. I didn't do a carbon testing of the paint. But the way that 44 is painted on the Weir building, that's exact.
It looks exactly like that.
And especially the point where it is, the way it's risen above, it's just too.
Right.
You understand? Like, if I would write 44, if I had a pen right now, I would just write like this. Like most people, like, like 75 cents, right?
Right.
But his is up here, or at least up here. It's not. In other words, it's not on the line, right?
Right.
It's not like.
Right. And his fours are like almost identical to one another, just like on the Weir house.
Yeah. So maybe the thing was even done afterwards. I don't know if there's anything to it other than the pattern of but he's very neat in his.
Very neat.
A lot better than mine.
Right.
But anyway, so I think that's the same as that. Now, obviously, again, this is a little bit redundant. The Duke of Death, we know, Manny broke it, was a shepherd at 22 Wicca. The Wicked King Wicca, we know, is a dog at 18.
Right.
I think he found this name from possibly a postal worker over there, not thinking it was part of a thing. But hey, I'm a postal worker, you're a postal worker. Those fucking dogs. And every postal worker has an issue with dogs, especially big dogs. Oh, that king, they know the dogs' names. 22 Disciples of Hell. I first thought it was directly overhead, meaning a map to
DOH.
To Pine Tree, DOH. I don't know. I think that might be a reach, because he in all his other letters, this is the House of Horrors, the Horror Hotel, the demons live here.
Right.
So 22 is more like
22
the
Wicker.
number, the 22 Wicker. Again, you broke that out, John Wheaties. when I thought young girls, I thought of the Nidos, but like you said, phonetically of Yonkers. Yonkers.
Young
girls. Yonkers.
Yonkers.
I think that this was a clue.
A location clue.
A location clue. This also, phonetically, read it like this. Please inform. Now, everything else reads well. Remember, Miss Loria, thank you. Not knowing what the future holds, I shall say farewell, and I will see you at the next job. Period. Phonetically correct.
Right.
Or should I say you will see my handwork at the next job? Remember, Miss Loria, thank you. So everything reads phonetically correct. Then it says, JB, please inform all the detectives working the slangs to remain.
And there's a mistake there that he
Right,
had to
but also to remain where?
Right.
What, to remain on the job? It's phonetically wrong. JB, please inform all the detectives working the slangs to remain. With that point, this is an area. This is an area. These are clues for geographical
Absolutely.
clues.
Wicker.
Right.
Wicker.
Right. John
Carr, who I'm...
Rapist and suffocator of Yonkers.
Right, who I'm obsessing over in my delusional mind.
This is geographical.
Right. And he's also, so he's mentioning the Wicker Street houses and the Carr house here.
Detectives working their slings to remain. To remain working the case. To remain in the area.
Right.
To remain. Pointing up. You thought it was an interjection like, oh, I forgot to put.
Oh, maybe he did that on purpose.
Right. Please inform all the detectives working the slangs remain. To remain. To.
And then pointing up to Wicker.
Again, this is speculation, because I don't have any corroboration. The only corroboration we have is we know what these are. These are dogs.
These are dogs. That's
22 we know is Wicker Street. If it was 22 Warburton, that's a stretch, Mike. No, it's 22 Wicker.
And he mentions
4 blocks on the thing.
And he mentions 22 obsessively just as much as he mentions 18.
Okay. Now, here's the PPS, which you messed up here, David.
Now, this is no more speculative than what Maury did in the book, so I think this is totally valid. In fact,
this is what I think that Maury, in his investigation, I think Eric brought this up too. He wasn't all completely wrong, like anything else. He would have been better off if he had somebody, a yin to his yang.
Somebody pushing back on him.
We all need that.
Yeah.
Very hard, even in relationships, to have people with both A+ personalities. You need balance in your life. You need the yin and the yang.
Right.
The good cop, bad cop. The intellectual and the meat eater. You know, the tough kind of gruff guy and the more kind of laid back kind of intellectual guy. It's beneficial to both parties. And he should have done that. But he had megalomania too, and he wanted this,
This was his case.
And even leading these men with years in Herb Lightfoot, these guys who were well schooled and worked hundreds of cases. He's dictating to them how to handle an investigation. Think about the audacity of doing that.
I thought
they were a lot more patient and they were decent. I would say, hey, buddy, shut the fuck up. Who you think you're talking to? You know what I mean? But anyway, to work in the case, that I wish them the best of luck. Now, again, this is, in my opinion, geographical, if you're going off of this. In my thinking, he's almost giving this an afterthought, like, okay, maybe they'll pick up on a geographical area. I'm even going to tease him more.
Yeah.
Please inform all the detectives working the case that I wish them the best of luck. These are landmarks. Yonkers, at a time, you didn't know, but Yonkers, when I would meet people with downtown, hey, where you from? I'm from Yonkers. Oh, by the racetrack? The only thing they knew, people who weren't from Yonkers, was the raceway.
The racetrack.
That's what drew people. Because Yonkers, the Trotters, that used to be one of the biggest races. When racing was like boxing. It was bigger than, it was
and they also had the Westchester County Fair. They also had the flea market. I remember it well.
But at that time, that's when the racetrack was at its height. People would come from other states to go there. It was a landmark of Yonkers. Best of luck. What's luck? Gambling. Racetrack. Keep them digging. Keep them digging. What do you mean? Digging.
Deegan.
The Deegan, the Major Deegan, here's the track, here's the Deegan. The Deegan, you got to take the Deegan to get to the track.
Now, just for people who don't know what the Deegan is, that's a major highway that passes right by.
It's literally
the
on
Yonkers
87,
Raceway.
Yonkers Raceway, and the reservoir is also on 87.
And it's called the Major Deegan Expressway.
Yeah.
Digging, interesting.
Drive on north.
So that one you agree with Maury on, because he said that north too.
Drive on, think positive, north.
Right.
Get off your butts. Now, I don't know if that's Ashburton, because Ashburton doesn't go off of the Deegan.
Right.
But you can get, maybe he didn't want to give all of it up. So drive on, meaning the Deegan eventually does turn into the Sawmill Parkway, but there's an exit for it. You have to know that.
Yeah, and that's by White Plains. That's way north of Yonkers.
No.
Oh, no.
Come off the Deegan, you go right to the cross.
You're
right. To
right.
the Sawmill.
Just at Riverdale,
Yeah.
at Van Cortlandt Park.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you take the, instead of going right to the Marshallow, you just stay on.
Correct.
You stay on and it turns into the Sawmill Parkway.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, if you stay on.
And I take it every fucking day.
Yeah, if you get off to the right, then you go to Van Cortlandt Park and to the Marshallow Parkway and
Right.
go to East Bronx if you continue over that way.
Right.
But if you stay on the Deegan, it eventually leads to Sawmill.
Which leads to
Now,
Ashburn.
I don't know because I was only a kid in 77, but the exit might have been Yonkers Avenue, Ashburton. Because Yonkers Avenue was the main thoroughfare, but so was Ashburton to go to downtown Yonkers.
Right.
So there might have been a sign. There might have been a sign that said, exit Ashburton, Yonkers Avenue. Okay. Knock on coffins is without a doubt, in my opinion, Pine.
Right, and we're in agreement with Maury Terry
Yeah,
there.
that's Pine Street. This, I try to work out all kinds of things, and I don't know if I'm nuts or probably reading into things that aren't there, but that's just having fun with it. But I buy a new pair of shoes if I get up the money. That's cop terminology. And get out there and pound the beat. Get out there and knock on doors. Wear out shoe leather. That was don't say, oh man, I walked that fucking beat so many times I went through 3 pairs of shoes.
So this is showing
That's
again
cop
that he's
terminology.
familiar with cop terminology.
That's cop jargon.
He's using the term job, which is cop terminology. Yeah. So this is clues potentially to his location and his past.
In other words, stay here. I'll give you a new pair of shoes, but in other words, it's going to take walking around, knocking on doors. That if you stay there and you work, in other words,
right,
knock on doors. They tell you that when on the cases, get out there and knock on doors.
Right. Faye bought me that a plaque. It says GOYA.
Get off your ass. Get off your ass and talk to people. Knock on doors.
Knock
They're
on
not going to be
doors.
solved. I'm sitting here in the fucking squad room.
In the 109th.
Yeah. But
although Sam Carr
I'm
did
not
walk.
judging them. Those guys, believe me, because number one for the whole thing, like every single guy in that squad, although the team players want to be the guy. That's why I laugh. They were probably crawling over each other to take that collar. And guys who were off that night with that fucking Zigo got that collar, 'cause that's the way we think. It's like
you want
to
the
break it
touchdown,
down. It's a
you want to
very
hit the winning home run.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
We're happy that the main thing is the bad guy got caught, but man, we would have liked it. We're all egocentric,
course.
That's why you're good at your job. But anyway, now these are just things. This is kind of wacky. Allow me a little levity. But if you get anything out of it, fine. Okay, this is just a complete novice wordplay guy. And he's consistent in all of his lining up, going back to the categorical mind. And all he indents correctly on a paragraph. He uses quotation marks. For all his lack of caring in school, he's
excellent writer.
He makes very few misspellings. Any misspellings he makes, like Weemon, that's intentional.
Even Breslin
That's not
mentioned.
dyslexic. That's intentional. That's a wordplay of woman and demon.
Even Breslin mentioned how good a writer he was.
Yeah. That being said, so again, this kind of defeats my theory because everything is lined up. But I was just playing around with letters and using the first letters.
He could have done a double code, the code and...
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just surmising. But when you break these down, these are the first letters going from top to bottom. Okay? J, D, C, B, D, B, U, B, O, S, M. I'm just from words that I do know. There might even be something else in there if you want to play around with this, somebody out there watching this. but DB says Dave Berkowitz, okay? Then this leaves us this many letters.
Of course, now people will say, John Carr.
They can do whatever. But now, job. Say this again, these are just things that I was spitballing. JOB, you remove that, right? JOB, now you have CPUSM. UPS, United Postal Service.
So in other words, you're removing letters,
Yeah.
and then the remaining letters that...
I'm taking other things. What word can I get out of this? Again, maybe somebody can come up with something else.
Right.
I'm not saying this. This is just speculation. Job. Now you're not UPS.
USPS is in there.
Job, UPS, MC are the only letters left. Mail carrier, or master car. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Master car, right?
I mean, I don't know. He wasn't a mail carrier, so that's what kind of like
Right, he
defeats
was
that
a
one.
sorter.
He
But
was a sorter.
U.S. Post.
Yeah.
The only thing that would make...
United States Postal Service.
Right, there should be another S here in that
Because
case.
UPS was around then.
Right. I mean...
It's just completely
I
speculative.
think it's just as valid as Maury's.
It's speculative.
And you also integrated some of Maury's stuff in here. So this is listen, that's what we're doing now. We're at the point now where we have new evidence.
This stuff is factual. This is speculation.
New theories, and we need to do this. Mike, I need to change batteries. Hold your thought. Okay, Mike, so we had just changed the battery. We just changed the battery, and you had just finished describing this, which I find very intriguing.
Yeah. This is obviously speculative, but like just a point of contention. You said like, well, Maury was speculating. I disagree with your saying that we're speculating. These are facts.
Correct. He didn't know this at the time.
This isn't speculation.
You're absolutely right.
That's not speculation.
None of
this is speculation
anymore, right? Because we have broken this.
It's been proven.
Right.
With this information, just to put it in a concept of legality, if I want to do a search warrant and I presented this to a judge and articulated this, I'd get a search warrant.
That's huge.
On this, you understand?
Yeah.
That would fly in court. If I went up and testified to this, a jury would convict.
I mean, it was the most obvious thing when I found out that there was a Duke and a King there. It wasn't even a split-second thought in my mind. Duh, you know? Like, this is beyond the realm of coincidence. Especially given the fact that he was obsessed with
Northwest Yonkers is in Beacon Hill, Massachusetts, you know, where everybody's sitting around leafing through Chaucer. But, I mean, people did read, and especially they read tablets. I'm fucking shocked that wasn't broken, but whatever.
I know.
It's easier for now, but that would, I mean, considering, I mean.
Even the Nettos.
Everybody and their mother was reading,
right.
Whatever. So now I kind of started my own little DB timeline.
Okay.
Beginning, I brought this up the first time I met you, the first time we were on film. And this isn't disrespecting anybody. This is it's not even opinion. Because, and this is before I even saw all his letters. I told you from the beginning, this kid, whether it's nature or nurture or a head injury, he's been doing devious, violent, not petty acts, and violent acts since he was a child.
And let's not forget the important adjective, sneaky, as well. I think that adds to the whole mix.
Criminals are sneaky.
Right, right.
That's part of the whole thing, getting over.
Right.
It's an evil person. I know a lot of people, oh God, not everybody has a good side. Bullshit. Evil is evil. The side they show you that's good is the evil masking good. There's nothing good there.
Right. Right.
Everything they do is manipulative. So even when they're good, they're faking it.
Right.
They're just bad.
I just don't understand how anybody can in their mind, and I was guilty of this too, because Maury turned this guy into a victim. This guy shot and
because
killed.
He's manipulative.
Right.
And because evil people are smart and people want to see the good in people, they use that against them. Do you understand?
Yep.
I see it with myself when I told you, when I see a guy on the street corner like this, eye fucking me, like when I was a cop, I respect him because he's got the balls to do it. And he chose a side and I chose a side. And you have to respect that. There's no fear of me and I ain't afraid of him. There's that mutual kind of like,
right.
There's no hate. Maybe there's hate there, but it's almost like we both respect each other for what we've chosen to do. You wear the black hat, I wear the white hat.
Right. I can get that.
You understand?
Yeah.
But it's the guy who's always like kissing your ass, and you're like, why is this guy who's kissing my ass? Like, or just kind of like the sneaky guy, like, you know, with the working cases, and somebody's, oh, Mike, you don't like that guy? I said, there's something bad with him.
Yeah.
He's too cooperative, or he's just too. I learned this from FBI schools too. When you're at the seat, always look for the people lurking. We know that now. But a lot of these guys, especially Austin, still hang around.
Right, right.
I tell you about the guy sitting with the erection when I was a freaking patrolman. I'm like, what are you doing here? And the firemen, they're like, oh, he's okay. I said, he's not all right. The fucking guy's head to toe, patches and all this shit. He's filming fires. Who does that?
He's got a boner?
He's got an erection. He's got 14 scanners in his car. So the guy's bad. I don't give a shit who he is. I don't want him here. Get him out of here. And I was like 24 years old.
Well, Berkowitz played up on that very thing.
They used that. They're
he
manipulative.
Said, my face, I love my face because nobody thinks that I'm paraphrasing.
You have to have...
Nobody thinks I'm evil because of my face.
There's a million Mike Lorenzos out there. Do you understand? I am not the fucking town crier on the wall. And I learned a lot of it from other people too, because even though I was street smart, you always learn, even by mistakes. I trusted that bastard, God.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you learn, and you have to be careful of that. You know, these kind of people that hide in the shadows. Like I said, I see a guy like you or some kid with a mohawk. I know what they're about. You know what I mean? Because they wear their heart on their sleeve. They might be rough around the edges like I am, but at least you know I'm not a bullshit artist. I'm not going to stab you in the back. So anyway, here's my timeline. And this is the short timeline. This is almost the adult timeline. We can go in. He returns to the Bronx from the Army, right? We don't know where he was, probably around the Co-op City area, but we know January 75, he moves into Barnes Avenue. Shortly thereafter, or during this time, he shoots a dog. He shoots the neighborhood dog.
Yeah,
it's an act of violence.
He's starting to shoot dogs, right?
He didn't have a 45 at this time. Here's another thing I told you off camera.
45 or 44?
He didn't have the 45 rifle.
Rifle, okay.
All right, he bought that in January 76, but he had a gun. Rifles you can buy in any Army Navy store at 18 years old with a driver's license in New York City if you had your hunting permit, which he did have. But he was a cab driver. There wasn't a cab driver in New York City who didn't have a 38 or a 22 in his waistband because they were getting offed like crazy.
Right.
And none of those guns were legal. Remember Easy Andy with freaking Travis Bickle?
Yeah.
Every guy, and I would too. If I was a hack down in New York City, I would have a gun because I'd rather get caught with the gun by the cops than have some guy fucking blow my brains out.
Yeah.
You know, so they all carried. They carried, and you could buy these guns for $50 on a corner down Times Square or any place in the Bronx. Even when I was a kid, at 13, I knew when I could get a gun if I wanted to.
It really actually makes me wonder why he went all the way to Texas to get this 44.
He wanted the 44.
You couldn't get a 44 here in...
Not legally, he couldn't. That's the guns the street guns years ago, unless somebody got it in a burglary like a 44, they were the guns that they could buy for $20 down south.
Okay, so not a nice gun. Like
they buy them in Pennsylvania, buy 10 of them at a gun show for $20, come to sell them to the hacks in New York City for $50 a clip. It's all business. But they're buying, and these guys didn't want these massive guns. They want a little gun they could keep in their pocket.
Right.
A 22 or even a little small 2-inch 38 with these kind of pants, you wouldn't even be able to see it. And they want a kind of quick access gun.
Not a very powerful, right. He wouldn't carry
That's a killing gun. A 44 is you buy that gun, John Camparello said he's worked in narco, he has to have a gun to stop it. When I carried off duty, I carried a 45 for that reason. I don't want 10 bullets. I want 7 there. If I hit you with 2 in your ankle, you're going to stop.
Right.
With a 9, I could shoot you 8 times. You could still come at me, like, or a 22. Like, it's a stopping power.
Right,
gun.
right.
And it's a murder gun. And it's also, again, we go to pop culture, 44 with Dirty Harry.
Right.
Oh, yeah, 44.
His
That's
favorite
the
movie
most
track.
powerful handgun in the world. He knew guns, but that was a Magnum.
Let's not forget
special.
the taxi driver. I don't care whether it was a Magnum in the 44 in the taxi driver. It still was a 44.
Well, yeah, Easy Andy sold that big gun was a 44.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget, 44 in Taxi Driver was in that scene when the guy goes, "I'm going to kill it with a 44."
Yeah, that's Martin Scorsese.
Right. Right.
You see that one?
What'd you say?
You see that woman in the apartment?
Yeah, that's my
my apartment. That's my wife, but that ain't my apartment. You know who lives there?
Yeah.
But anyway, so let's get back to the real world. So he finds Betty Falco through his organizational process, intelligent mind. He tracks down his birth mother, which is not an easy thing to do, but he did.
Right.
At 575, right? Without the internet and all this stuff. Again, it shows that when he sets his mind to something,
he writes
gets
it
accomplished.
he writes it in the letters, in meticulous detail about all the steps he went through to find her. It was like 10 steps at least. It was cross-referencing. It was major phone book searches, going to the library.
Yeah.
It was insane.
This is the one he admits to. 12/25/15, Christmas. He stabs 2 women in the Bronx. He admitted that. I don't know. I've never seen the paperwork on it, but that's the fact that he admitted that. Now, my thing is this. And you see him when you read the Abrahamson letters about the continuous, like when he starts opening up, he starts talking about all these crimes he did as a kid with the paint, with the fires. He's home for 1 year.
Yeah.
He already did the shooting here within 6 months. He did nothing from here to here. Bullshit. Bullshit. He did 11-month span. Now, I'm going to show you what solidifies my argument when I tell you that's bullshit.
Right.
So for 11 months, there's no reports or anything, right?
Right.
Nothing. He, for all his life of doing all these nefarious acts, from this period to this period, he did nothing. He was on a spiritual journey.
So we're talking about 175 to 270 to 1275.
Yeah, that's 11 months.
Right.
He did nothing. Bullshit. At the least, he was out doing serial fire. And he also has a gun.
Right.
With the pattern, what I'm going to show you with my thesis, why I think he did more killings besides the 44, is when he has a gun, he uses it. Let me repeat that. When he has a gun, a firearm, he uses it.
Right.
To kill a dog or whatever.
Yeah, well, he doesn't even hesitate to.
Don't forget during this time, too, another thing about pop culture. What were big movies back then?
Dirty Harry.
Black Sunday, Sniper.
Okay.
Do you remember these movies?
No, I mean,
They were big in the 70s. Because it was the Charles Whitman who went up in the tower in Texas and killed those people. Hollywood apes. Hollywood always follows reality.
So there was a sniper movies that were out during that time period?
Yes. Yeah.
Because, you know,
2-minute warning was another one where a guy was shooting people at a Super Bowl game with a rifle. You don't remember that?
These are before my time. I mean,
right around this time period, look those up. You can make a mental note.
You know, this is very interesting because, again, integrating new information. He wrote a whole letter to Governor Carey talking about the trash in the media influencing him and other criminals to go out and do their criminal acts. Maybe he's admitting there.
The 70s was like the era of the violent, anti-hero, violent movies. The Laughing Policeman. All these guns, because I'm a fan of this stuff. Right. That's why I know this stuff.
Right.
I'm a big movie buff. And
you need this cross-fertilization of influence.
So within maybe not even a month's time, we know, again, factual. January 76, he buys a .45 caliber semi-automatic rifle. Tommy gun style, not a hunting weapon, not a little 22. He was not a hunter. He loved animals, but he buys a Tommy gun, right? Semi-automatic, but a 30-round capacity. That's a killing gun. There's no other reason to have that gun. If you're normal, you might do it. Like I said, I had a 30-round clip. It was the target shooting and fun. I'm not a hunter either.
Right.
Around January 76 is when he moves to New Rochelle. I don't know the exact dates with the Casares. I'm not going to go into that tangent. How do you know them? That's the one thing that bothers me.
It bothers me too.
376, he works at the post. He gets a job at the post office. He has the incident somewhere around here where he freaks out. So he's already doing the craziness with the dogs. He didn't shoot them because he was probably afraid of the son. They would have known it was him. He was the only.
And he leaves abruptly.
The Bronx is one thing. You know, he shoots a dog there. You have a million suspects. He's in a suburban one-bedroom apartment in a private home.
Right.
They're going to go right to him.
And let's also not forget how he left. Apparently he left like abruptly in the middle of the night, which meant that it might have been out of frustration that he couldn't do anything.
He knew he couldn't do it. And the son and the father weren't wimps.
No.
So he moves to Pine Street in April 76. Right?
Right.
Almost immediately. He throws the Molotov cocktail. Probably wrote the letters. There was other shots fired reports in that area.
Right.
They were unfounded. I talked to a couple of cops who I tracked down the files, and again, of course, they didn't find anybody. He was probably shooting from his window up on Pine Street doing pot shots. He had the rifle.
Right.
He doesn't have the handgun yet. He doesn't have the 44 yet. He's shooting guns. We know he owned at least two 22s, one with a scope, and he owns the monster gun.
The Tommy gun.
The Tommy gun, all right? So it's a 4 period. Again, you mean to tell me, here's another 4 months. Dead dogs and tortured dogs with the needles are saying they're hearing these dogs wailing, getting tortured. In all likelihood, there's a good probability it was him doing it. Okay? Torturing dogs or killing dogs in and around that area. All right. June 76, he gets to 44 when he went down to see his old man, hooks up with his buddy from the Army. He buys a charter on 5-shot special. That's illegal. It's illegal. He knew it. Everybody knows it. He quit some job on 7/28. I guess he was working 2 jobs. Maybe he was still driving a hack and working at the post office, but he quits. The day after, he shoots the first shooting. Wednesday to Thursday, the girl's coming from Peachtrees, right?
Right.
Donna Laurie and the other one?
Right.
First 44 shooting. It was Wednesday to Thursday into the early hours of Thursday morning.
Right, and we already have Amato's testimony that he came there several times.
From the time he buys the gun to that time is 1 month. Right? 1 month time, he gets this gun, I got this new toy, boom.
He's using it.
He's using it. Next shooting is my second murder attempt with the 44.
That's Denaro's shooting.
Denaro shooting. That was a 3-month stage. I believe he was doing something else in that time. Can't prove it, but that's that. If he was influenced by the Zodiac used multiple weapons. He used a 9mm and a 22. He used 2 different guns, which was known.
And if you think about it, why wouldn't he have used more than one gun in the beginning? He wasn't known as the 44 caliber killer. He wasn't known, right?
Okay. I think one of the reasons he did the 44 is he did other shootings, especially with a 22 rifle. He didn't get the results he wanted. Or it wasn't up close and personal enough. He might have shot and killed a couple people with another. I believe that at least he attempted to. Either through sniping.
Sniping, pot shots, maybe on the highway.
No, sniping from a car with the 22. Or I guarantee you there's cold cases from at least 175 up until we pin him through ballistics to the thing. Like, again, going back to my theory, I caught you for 1, you did 10.
Right. And it makes sense because, as you're saying, he gets
He's
guns.
He's already murdering things.
Right, and he's getting a gun here and he's using it a month later. Right. Why wouldn't he do that with other guns?
He loves animals, but he'll kill an animal. He loves people. He will kill a person.
Yeah.
He will kill a person.
Easily.
That is not a thing for him. It's not, there's no, but, so he gets the bulldog, boom, 5 shots. Wednesday to Thursday, Friday into Saturday, this is what gets me, there was no pattern. He had 10 shooting incidents, including the dogs, 9 at night. Harvey was the only one during the day. 7 were on the weekends, and Neto was on a holiday. The only ones that aren't were the first one. Every other one is Friday into Saturday, Friday into Saturday. And look at the spacing, 1 month.
Basically a month.
Even though this is not a person, he kills Anito's dog 1 month after the 3rd shooting. Okay?
Right.
1:30, Saturday to Sunday. That's when realizes that it's the same gun. That's when, okay, listen, we're matching them up. This is the same gun, the same MO. People getting shot in cars, large caliber weapon. Now that he's on there, they know that they have at least commonality with these crimes. Okay. 5 weeks. Which one was the?
That was Voskorician.
That was the girl.
That broke the MO on the street.
On the street, right?
And early in the evening.
5 weeks. Again, 5 weeks. We're not. So there's no huge gaps.
We're talking about a month and
right.
a week.
Another 5 weeks. This is where he gets the summons. which is ironic because that's when he wrote the Borelli letter.
Correct. Which the Borelli letter, yeah, right.
In the Borelli letter, this is where he gives him the moniker Son of Sam, little brat. The bang 5 times, I leave you with these words, bang, 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 bang.
Bang.
That also is not unintentional. That's to tell them this is a 5-shot 44.
Yeah, it is strange, because why not go bang, 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 which is what most people do. They do 3, or bang,
And most
or
of his
1.
shootings were only 4 shots. And I tracked that down. There were some where he did 5, but a lot of them he did 3 and 4. Him going bang, 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 bang. That's a taunt. This is a 5-shot 44.
Right, right. He would, I mean, to me,
Because
this
everything
makes sense.
he does, it's a reason for him doing it. So when he says bang, bang, I'm sure they picked up on that. That probably was like, this fucker.
Right.
He's a 5-shot. And also, I think early they knew it was a charter arms. I don't know how they figured that out, but the Queens water, Queens gets their water from Yonkers. The Yonkers Reservoir feeds New York City.
Right. The reservoir right by the cross, right just south of the
racetrack.
raceway.
Yeah, right there.
Interesting.
Right along the Deegan.
And right against the Deegan.
Yeah. I got to return me to Yahoos. When I would meet people, sense of, oh, Yahoo from Yonkers. That was like a slur.
And now, what time period are we talking about? Was this slur used mainly? Like what era of years? Those years?
I don't know, but things last. I don't know. I was 12. I wasn't calling people from the Bronx.
No. But you heard people called Yahoos from Yonkers when you were 12.
No, I can't say that.
So later. But you're saying that people from the Bronx would call Yonkers people Yahoos.
Yeah, Yahoos. Yeah.
Because that's another word that's like, why the hell was this word used in the letter? This could mean Yonkers also.
Yeah.
This is good.
I'm sure
shit.
he needs terminology of effing around with his friends. Oh, up in Yonkers. Oh, up there with those Yahoos.
Yeah.
It's kind of a way of like a hick, like Yahoo.
And Fay pointed out a Bronx terminology in the letters. He said, my mother, she's another winner. That was like a term people used in the Bronx.
That's a working class also.
Yeah.
Bronx and Yonkers are very similar.
Very similar.
Like, well, I'll tell you, meet, but where are you from? The Bronx and Yonkers. We have the same kind of dialect.
Right.
If you're working class, we drop our R's.
Right.
I don't pick it up until I hear myself on these tapes. I'm like, God, I sound like a freaking, I sound like a Slip Mahoney from the East Side Kids. But anyway, so 424 Harvey is shot, right? We've been down that scene. That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
He admitted to it later in the thing about, and there's been all this speculation, that was a rifle. I mean, the only way it was a 45, the only ways he literally, and which is possible, but he alludes that he shot him with a rifle, was if he walked right up to the freaking thing and shot it with that kind of gun.
Right. And then the dog would have been killed, more likely than not.
You can never say.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, he was right up on De Niro shooting a 44 and he didn't kill him. And the other girl, I mean, he was, you can get lucky, man. People get shot. I seen it. I see this one guy. I told him he got stabbed he got shot in the heart. He's a real mutt. And I go over and the doctor who I knew, he said, yeah, he's going to check out. And I said, all right. So I go over and he probably got shot doing somebody else dirty. And I said, hey, you're going to tell me? Nah, fuck you. I want to talk to cops. All right. So I got a plastic bag and I start collecting his clothes. He goes, what are you collecting my clothes for? I said, you're a homicide victim. It's protocol. We have to collect your clothes from gunshot residue. He's like, just leave my cigarettes. I'm like, all right. I left him his cigarettes. Told doctor, if he checks out, call me. Because I don't know. I have a crime scene, nothing. I just got this asshole with a bullet in his heart. And so in the morning, I worked at midnight, call 7 o'clock. I said, hey, where's whatever, dumb head. And he goes, hey, he checked himself out. He took his smock and cigarettes and walked down South Broadway. I said, I hope he goes to the Bronx and dies. And this way it won't be my homicide.
And you never found out what happened to this
No,
guy?
who cares? What am I going to do? Search, You told me to go pound salt. I don't need a lot of convincing.
That's
I thought
true,
I'll go
that's
pound
true.
salt. So anyway, okay, getting back to this. So the dog killed with the rifle, probably blah, blah, blah. This is more to show the kind of leading, not to my theory. I believe this from being a cop, and this would fly in court. I can articulate this, and people go, yeah.
Right, and it's making total sense to me.
so 1 month period, it just goes to show you that people say, oh, he's escalating here. My thing is, these are the ones we know about it through ballistics. I don't think there was ever a period in his life where he wasn't escalating.
No, and I
think he was escalating since he was fucking 9 years old.
Yeah, from the
and there
paint
wasn't
can
a
to
day that he was walking by where he didn't do something bad. That's what evil people do. There's not a day that goes by and goes, today I'm going to be a good boy.
Right,
no.
and cruel, too. He would crush matzah. I mean, that's not a big deal, but it's kind of cruel in a way to crush people's
hurts somebody's
matzah.
feelings.
Yeah, and it
It's
screws
a
with someone's...
passive-aggressive way. Yeah, he's a fucking
screws
monster.
with someone's recipe.
So, okay, he gets the ticket here, the Borelli letter, right? He does Harvey. 9 weeks, he does 626.
That's Lupo and Placido.
In Queens, correct?
That's in Queens. And
the
Placido's an interesting person because she lived on Wickham Avenue in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was
maybe
chosen. Wicker, Wickham. Anyway.
And then he does the Moskowitz. This is 1 month apart. So at the biggest gaps, he'll have 2 months. But in other words, there's a pattern. That's what, again, going back to like when people, there was no pattern. Bullshit, there's not a pattern.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in fairness, I know what they did. Because they did have the manpower. They probably flooded the area, but God almighty, New York is a big... When people from out of state, they think of New York, they think of Radio City, Times Square. Look at the freaking map. When I was in Ireland last, I'm like, I said, hey, assholes. Because a lot of Europeans, they're stupid, they're smug, you know, and I said, let me explain something to you. There's more people in New York City than there is in your whole country. That's a fact.
Right.
And New York City, look at a map, is a little blip. New York is huge. So when people say New York City, they don't think of ass end of Brooklyn or Riverdale. They think of Times Square in Manhattan. It's incorporated into the city of New York. But you get out of Manhattan, which is a small little strip of land that most of it nobody really goes to, except for Midtown and these hot areas. But the Bronx and Yonkers and Queens and Brooklyn and even Staten Island are huge.
Yep.
Look in Yonkers. I told you I don't even know people from the east side of Yonkers. You guarantee I didn't know. Guarantee unless you have a cousin, you know nobody from Pelham Bay or from Hunts Point. Like,
we had a cousin actually in Pelham Bay, so yeah, you're right.
But you wouldn't unless you went to school with them. Like that's how you would kind of make some associations. But for the most part, it's every borough has its own distinctive thing.
Now, getting back to this whole thing on pattern, I was just thinking, we're human beings. We tend to do things in patterns.
Yeah. Especially a regimented person like him.
Right. Do most criminals follow patterns, or are there ones who know that there's patterns and then try?
Organized ones do. He gets off on saying, they have my pattern, but they don't know where I'm going to hit.
Right.
He's a cab driver. He would know how to navigate areas where he wouldn't necessarily have to use distinctive routes. Mm-hmm. He would know roundabout ways. He would know, again, with his background in knowledge of the Bronx, good knowledge of the Bronx, good knowledge of Queens.
Excellent.
He wasn't that. Just him getting the ticket in Brooklyn. A kid from Brooklyn would have known where to get a better parking spot,
right,
or something like that. You could tell he had no familiarity with Brooklyn.
Right.
Manhattan, he probably knew like the back of his hand from being a cab driver.
And also
Queens, he would know everything because all the airport runs and all that shit.
And his family lived there.
In Queens, one good thing about New York, except for certain portions of Brooklyn, and it's a very easy place. The grid pattern, whether you like Moses or not, the grid pattern in most of the boroughs is pretty easy, and the thoroughfares are it's very hard to get lost in New York.
And let's also not forget that he was doing this, he was buffing from a teenager with Comparetto. They were driving all over the city to fires.
Well, no, that would be borough distinct.
Borough, okay, so he was driving all over at least the Bronx.
Yeah, he would know the Bronx.
Yeah, he would know the Bronx.
I got to wrap up soon because I got to do something. He quits the PO job right before that, which I never knew. I just found this out only 2 days before Moskowitz. He quit.
Just like he quit this job, and then the next thing he does is go shoot someone.
At first, I wasn't. I was on the fence about him wanting to get caught. I do think that he did want to get caught.
He knew.
But after seeing the Suffolk letter, which first time, I love finding new stuff. It was the first time I read it, was the other day. And yeah, he was, that was the night Chicago died.
Yeah,
he was going to
go
going
out.
And he was going to try to take out cops and everything. A lot of lucky people that night. Good grabbing that fucking night.
Right.
Here's what I want to end it on. This is complete speculation. Everybody buys into Sam Carr, and that's what he gave. Oh, Sam Carr. But because of the occult angle, and because I think he was a fractured, he had a fractured identity. He was a kid that didn't really know his background. He was raised by Jewish people, but kind of not Orthodox and very casual.
He also was
Jewish.
Very conflicted about his Judaism.
Conflicted. He probably took some shit about that.
Right.
Then he went Christianity, Jews for Jesus.
Huge issues there that we can.
Then he goes into the cults. Everything is dramatic. But what do we do know? We know he had a religious identification crisis. We knew that he didn't go into anything half-ass. So now he's searching for some kind of identity. A lot of people look to that through religion. I don't doubt that he would read up on Jewish Kabbalism, Gnosticism. Again, what the 70s brought in a lot of Eastern. They started mixing Eastern, Middle Eastern religions apart from what was the standard kind of Christian background. That was a big mix, especially in the 60s and 70s. And there was a lot of books. Every book that was coming out was geared to that. Self-help. There was like the decade of the self-help and all this other shit. People finding themselves, right, that decade. So with that being in mind, the son of Samael is Cain in the Gnostic Bible. Not in the King James Bible, but the King James Bible, just so people who maybe don't read or look into things as much as we do, there's a lot of versions of biblical stories. Mm-hmm. The King James Bible is one of them.
Right.
There's other interpretations of these tales, of these stories from the Bible. Right. And in the one story that we're familiar with, where I grew up in the Catholic churches, then the serpent came down and the tree of knowledge was this apple. In other versions, it's Samael, which is similar to Satan, a demon of Satan or one of the fallen angels. And he seduced Eve. He tried to seduce Adam, but didn't. But he seduced Eve. And what we gain is with the seduction of knowledge. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is, he brought evil into the world by having Cain. In other words, he is the father of Cain, Samael.
Right.
These are things to look up. You can verify them. Believe me. That's one thing. And he's the serpent who tempted Eve. And Cain is, in all religions, according to the Bible, the first murderer. He killed his brother. Saman is another figure in the Gnostic Bible who summoned souls of evil men who he thought Sam Carr was an evil man, right? Mm-hmm. Condemned to inhabit animal bodies.
Oh.
That's where the Sam and the dog things are thirsty for blood. He's also the druid god of the dead.
Which may tie into the whole tree thing, maybe.
And then the 22, again, this is just a reach, but there's 22 tarot cards, and 22 divided by 7, which is the number of God, equals pi. Pine. that is complete speculation.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is fun. A lot of that stuff goes over my head. I'm much more into this. But Mike, wow, unbelievable presentation. You really did your homework, and I want to say on behalf
There's speculation, but in these things, I don't believe it's speculation. I believe it's chronological facts. And my last point is, I firmly believe, and not in a conspiratorial mind, and I know it probably be hard as hell to prove. They caught him for these. That's what they caught him for. And every time he had a weapon, he used it.
And we just need to point out, he had a ton of weapons, which I'm going to put on the screen now for everybody to see.
And people might say, why didn't he admit to the other ones when the gig was up? Because in a way, that gives him satisfaction that he knows there's other ones that they could never pin
That
on.
works with his mindset.
That works with his mindset.
Yeah.
His little secret.
Controlling things. My secret. Yeah.
He'll give you a little dog. But the things that he knows he did that he got away with gives him satisfaction.
He probably jerked. Well, I don't want to say be so gross about it, but it probably excites him in some weird way. But wow, so unbelievable stuff, Mike. Thank you so much. I'm like in shock. This is great. This is definitely new things for people to speculate on and to discuss, and I am very happy about that because, well, I want to get away from the old and into the new. So, on behalf of Mike, everybody, I want to say thank you so much, and hopefully there'll be a new video soon. Mike, thanks a lot.